Hi, welcome back to Japan Soul Traveler. Today I was confused about what to talk about, and I decided it was time for me to share with you the first experience I had with Japan, so my first time with this amazing place. The reason why I think this is a nice topic is because I usually talk about Japan as a second country for me and as a second skin almost, and being passionate about something may seems that it's easy to experience it, and it may seem that my relationship with Japan was without bumps and lumps along the way, and in fact it's not. So I think it could be interesting to share my first impression with this country the first time I went there. First of all, my love for Japan began very early. I remember falling in love with anime and manga at, I don't know, 6-7 years old. One of my first memory is Versailles Nobara, Lady Oscar, and later on other anime like Sailor Moon or, I don't know, Capitan Tsubasa. I mean, all the 80s manga, I was a fan. So my love began back then, and it began with a very pop cultural reason, a very geeky passion. When I decided that this was more than a passion, it was about university time, so I began to study the language, and I chose an academic path that could lead me in time to actually visit Japan and to properly experience it. So I went on and studied Japanese religions and Japanese culture in a broader sense until I finally get to organize my first ever trip to Japan in 2008. I remember I was excited about this because it was my dream coming true, so I started planning it in February, when the actual trip would have been in July, August, and it was a very full period of dreaming, planning indeed, and then scheduling, and then organizing everything that had to be organized for that time. And I still remember the excitement of getting on a plane and looking at the monitors with the writings Tokyo, Narita. So that really was for me the dream of a lifetime coming true. The thing is, the first 2 weeks there, well, maybe the first 10 days there, were a nightmare. I can't find another word to say. There's no easy word to describe it. A nightmare. First of all, the flight was never ending. For me, it was the first time on a long trip, on a long flight, and I wasn't experienced. I didn't know how to adjust, and so for me that was really a very hard experience. And when I landed there, wow, it was summer. And never been there, I didn't expect that. So yes, people told me look out because it's very hot, it's really warm and it's really humid there, so remember this when you plan your trip. And I was, yeah, okay, Italy is cold, is warm too, so no problem. No, not at all the same thing. And the moment I stepped out the metro in Tokyo, before getting to Nagoya, it was a very hard awakening, because I don't like warm weather, I don't like hot weather, I'm more of a winter person, so for me that was hell. So when I arrived in Okazaki, which is very close to Nagoya actually, I just remember being sleep deprived and exhausted by the weather. So it was a very, how to say, it wasn't the mood I expected to experience once I arrived there. Anyhow, I get to arrive at the Okazaki station and I get to make a phone call. For me, phone calls are a reason to freak out. I don't like to talk to people via telephone. I really don't like anything that's connected with a phone call. And yet I had to make this very brief call in Japanese. And in that moment I realized, oh good, I spent 2 years said in Japanese and I don't know a word. So this was the third terrible revelation that I had just in the 12 hours in the trip. Well, I arrived there. Somehow I arrived in Okazaki, I arrived at my dorm, I arrived in my room, and I think I fainted and I black out for a whole day, and the following days were hard too, because in a way I had to take the language test and I had to adjust with the eating, because I didn't eat a lot, so I was very tired, and being tired I was not feeling very hungry or anything like that, so I had to adjust to that schedule, to the new rhythm. And another thing that for me was very strange once I arrived there was a very peculiar smell that I only found in Japan, and I only found in summer in Japan. And this is this sweety, how to say, dense smell that I think it's a mixture of rice paper and some other summer stuff that you have there. And today, after more than 10 years, almost 10 years, I don't know what that smell is, so if you know, please let me know. And while for me now that is a very warm memory of Japan and of the first time I went there, in that time for me was very difficult to accept. Maybe it was very sweet, so it aggravated all the physical condition that I felt. So this is to say that actually the first 5 days in Japan for me were very hard. I was alone and I was in a country where English was not an option and Japanese was not an option for me back then, and so I felt very lonely and I was very sad, because that was my dream and I wanted to know why I couldn't really fit in. So it took me a few days to realize that I was really exhausted, and the exhaustion actually, I would say, covered any other feeling, any other emotion. So after this first rough patch, I could actually start to enjoy life there, and I began to get more comfortable with the sleeping and with the warm weather, with the hot weather, and in time I started to understand how to make the best of air conditioning and how to relax from the very warm sun. So for me that first 15 days, 2 weeks allowed me to overcome the initial trauma. And I think I can actually speak about cultural shock when I arrived there, because everything was different. And even if I knew it and I studied it and I wanted to be different, it's not the same, and you have to keep it in mind when you go there, even if you are there for a vacation, and so you won't be alone and you won't be, how to say, thrown into the new things with such violence. Nonetheless, there is a huge difference between our cultural standards, our cultural habits. Italian, European, American often have similar habits. So when you go there, you are really a foreigner, you are a stranger, you are strange for that culture, and you feel it. People is nice, it's so nice, but you don't find anything that it's familiar to you. You have a hard time with the errands. You enter a supermarket and you don't know where to look, because everything that you look at, it's written in kanji, and even if you studied Japanese, you're not prepared for that, and you have to learn to be calm and take your time and realize that people is there to help you, but still everything is different, and you won't find in the basic everyday life, you won't find the same things. So maybe you are used to go to the supermarket and buy fruits. In Italy we have lots of fruits and we use them as a snack. In Japan you don't find that, or if you find it, it's very expensive. So you have to adjust everything to that. In time, of course, you will have your own new habits and you grow into them, but I think it's important to understand that Japan is contemporary, modern place, but it's different, and you have to respect that, and you have to be also very self-indulgent in the time that it will take for you to adapt. I really think this is very brief introduction to the notion of cultural shock, and maybe I will talk a lot more in the future about this and about the other very hard experience I had in Japan in the following years. But I really think this could be helpful in any way, and so let me know in the comment section, and I talk to you soon.